Do you know the neuroscience that makes it actually impossible for you to accurately judge your book's hook? I'm Angie, and I've published 6 books, and I also have a degree in counseling. And here's what's happening. So, when you write, you are using a completely different part of the brain than when you read. Writer brain constructs the story, and reader brain experiences it. And those two experiences are completely different. And this is why you literally cannot accurately judge your opening. In this video, I'm breaking down 3 cognitive biases that makes it difficult for you to accurately judge your hook. And then I'm going to give you some practical techniques that professional authors use to switch from the writer brain to the reader brain. By the end, you'll know exactly why your opening feels clear to you, but confusing to readers. And you're also going to know how to fix it before you hit send. Let's start with the big one, the curse of knowledge. And this is a cognitive bias where when you already know something, your brain literally cannot unknow it. You can't even imagine not knowing it. And so what happens is when you're reading, your brain will automatically fill in contextual information that's not even on the page. Here's how this kills your hook. You write, Sarah gripped the vial, her last chance slipping through her fingers. In your head, you know that Sarah is a scientist, that the vial that she's holding contains a sample of the plague. She dropped it and it's leaking. Her daughter has the plague and is dying. And this sample that she just dropped, it's the only sample. But your reader sees a person named Sarah holding a vial, and that's it. You think you're writing high-stakes drama. However, the reader is thinking, okay, who's Sarah? What's so important about this vial, and why should I care? The curse of knowledge makes you skip the orientation that the reader desperately needs because your brain is saying, obviously they know this, but they don't. Let me show you how this works in practice. Marcus pressed the sigil into the wax, knowing this would be the last time. The author knows that Marcus is a king who is abdicating his throne. The sigil is his royal seal, and this is ending a 400-year dynasty, and it's a letter that's going to start a civil war. That all sounds pretty high stakes, but the reader just saw some guy stamping a wax sigil into a letter. There's no context. There's no reason for your reader to care. Neuroscience creates this problem, but it can also help us fix it. So this is how we can rewrite that sentence to fix this. Marcus pressed his royal sigil into the wax for the last time. 400 years of his family's rule ended with one letter. By morning, the kingdom would tear itself apart. This is the same action, but now the reader has context and a reason to care. Now, here is a writing exercise so that you can apply this to your writing right now. Take your opening paragraph and highlight or underline every noun and every action. And then ask yourself, if a reader who knows nothing about your story was to read this, every noun and action, would they understand? Would they have context to understand who this is and why it matters? And if you answer no to that question on any of your sentences in your opening paragraph, then you want to look at that and you want to add one detail, one sentence. That's usually all you need. Cognitive bias number 2 is author blindness. Now, this is a sneaky one because your brain is so connected with that story and you're so into it that as you're going through it, your brain will automatically fix errors. and it'll insert missing words, and it'll even unravel confusing sentences. You literally cannot see what's actually on the page. You will read what you meant to write. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies have shown that when you read your own writing, your brain is using what's called predictive processing. It's anticipating what's going to come next based on what you intended, not on what you actually wrote. Here's how this ruins your hook. So you write, "The door slammed and she knew that he'd found out about the letters." Well, in your brain, this is crystal clear because you know who he is, you know what those letters are all about, and you know why it matters. But your reader sees pronouns with no noun attached to them, a door slamming, and letters. Like, what are these letters? Are they love letters? Or is it blackmail? It could even be a grocery list. Your brain is amazing. It fills in gaps automatically. And this is great, but for a reader brain, it leads to confusion. Here is another example of this. "It was the third time this week, and Maya was done pretending she didn't notice." As an author, you think this is intriguing, but for the reader, they're asking, third time, what happened? And what was she pretending not to notice? And who even is Maya? The author brain is auto-filling, because in the author's brain, obviously, it's the third time her husband's come home smelling like perfume, and Maya is tired of ignoring his affair. But none of that's on the page, so we can fix it like this. "It was the third time this week Marcus had come home smelling like jasmine perfume, and Maya was done pretending she didn't notice." We got one extra clause, but we have a massive clarity boost. Now here is a writing exercise so that you can apply this to your writing right now. I want you to take your opening paragraph and read it out loud slowly, word by word. And every time you find yourself automatically inserting information, I want you to stop. And I want you to add that information into the sentence. Better yet, have text to speech read it out loud to you. When you hear those words without reading them, your brain has a harder time auto-filling that information. Now here's a pro tip. Use the natural reader voice on your computer or your phone. The slightly robotic delivery of the words will force you to hear only what's written, not what you intended. Okay, everyone, here's where it gets really interesting. Cognitive bias number 3 is different neural processing. When you write, you are using your frontal lobe for planning and language production, but you're also using your motor cortex for the physical act of typing or writing. When you read, you're using Wernicke's area for comprehension and your default mode network. And this area is responsible for imagination and empathy and that visual simulation in your brain. These are fundamentally different brain systems. So when we're writing, we're activating the construction part of our brain. And when we're reading, we're activating the experience part of our brain. That's why your opening can feel so exciting to you as the writer, because you are experiencing the thrill of creation. And the reader may be bored to tears because they're trying to just experience the story. Here's another killer example. You write, "The explosion ripped through the building, glass shattered, people screamed, chaos everywhere." As a writer, your brain is firing on all cylinders. You are visualizing the chaos and the explosions. You're hearing the screams and you're feeling the adrenaline rush. You know why this explosion matters to your protagonist, but the reader brain is asking questions. Whose point of view am I in? And Why does this explosion matter? And wait a minute, where's that building? And why should I care about these people screaming? You're experiencing construction excitement, and the reader is experiencing confusion. So here is a writing exercise that you can apply to your writing. I want you to take that opening and ask yourself this question. Am I experiencing construction excitement, the thrill of the creation? Or am I experiencing the story excitement, the joy of the story? If you're excited because the events themselves are compelling without even knowing that you created them, that's reader brain, and that's what you want. How do professional authors overcome these biases? How do they switch from author brain to reader brain? The answer is strategic distance. You need to create psychological distance between yourself and your manuscript so that your brain stops auto-correcting and just reads. Here are 3 techniques that really work. And technique number 1 is time gap. And so what you want to do is you want to finish writing your opening pages and let it rest. You want it to sit for at least 48 hours, but ideally a week. And what happens when you go back to it and you read it, your brain has forgotten some of those details that you created, and your brain will actually read what's actually on the page. And technique number 2 is the format shift. Now, you can do several things. You can, whatever font you normally write in, if it's Times New Roman, switch it to Comic Sans. Switch the font throughout the entire document. You can change the background color or the text color. But a really good one is if you normally read all your stuff on screen, print it out, have it on paper. That visual disruption of having to look at it and digest it in a different way will help your mind to really read what's there. And technique number 3 is the reverse read. And with this, you want to take your opening paragraph or your opening page and read it from the end up. So read your last sentence and then the next to last sentence. And what this does is it disrupts your predictive processing in the brain, and you will immediately spot gaps or confusing sentences by doing this. The technique that I use the most is a combination, actually, the time gap and the format shift. And what I'll do is I'll finish my opening paragraph, opening chapter, I'll let it sit for a minimum of 3 days, preferably a week. And then I go back, I change the font, and I print it out. And then I read it in paper format, and it works every time. And here is your writing exercise. Take your opening paragraph, just that first paragraph, and apply one of these techniques to that paragraph and see what you discover. You may be shocked. I'll bet you find at least 3 things that you thought were clear as everything, and they're actually very confusing. I would love it if you dropped a comment on which one of these techniques you used and how many things you noticed because of it. I'd also love to hear from you. Which one of these cognitive biases are you most guilty of? Drop that in the comments. Now, if you like this type of content, you would probably also really like this one, our character development series. You can check that out here. And if you really like content like this, make sure you like and subscribe and help the channel and check that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos. Happy writing, and thanks for watching.